What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So as we head towards that June 5th release date for the Switch 2, bits and pieces of information have been getting out there pretty much every single day, and in fact some coming from hands-on events. With the latest bit of information, it actually seems to be a pretty big change when it comes to the control side of things for the Switch 2, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Rockstar and Take-Two as GTA 6 has fallen into 2026. Looks like they have another plan for Grand Theft Auto fans, maybe for 2025 around holiday time, with a pretty big remaster, or I guess you could say port of a game that's now 17 years old. And then we also have the Dreamcast in the news with a pretty big accessory that's been revealed and is actually set to debut here pretty soon, and seems to be the next big upgrade for the VMU, and you're going to check out what it's playing, all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Stellar Blade, as we've been waiting to hear when exactly it'll be heading to the PC. And, well, it seemed like Sony accidentally posted the video for it with that release date. We can see this over on Gematsu. And they say the PC version of Stellar Blade will launch via Steam on June 11th. This appears to be alongside of a complete edition for the game. And as I mentioned, Sony just seemed to post the trailer by accident, then they removed it. But of course, it's the internet, no one really forgets, and the trailer's already been shared around as it is. Still though, I'll just show you the standard Stellar Blade trailer that we got when it first was revealed. Anyway, the game itself is set to release June 11th, alongside of a bunch of stuff included with the complete edition. As you can see some of it here, with they have the different expansions or DLC, including that Nier crossover, which is pretty cool, and then some outfits, cosmetics, stuff like that. So they also had shown footage previously of Stellar Blade running on the Steam Deck. It was off-screen footage, so we'll have to see when it comes out how it really runs with independent benchmarks, but for now, this is what people have been waiting for, to see Stellar Blade make that jump to PC, give Shift Up another big release so they can continue working towards what I assume will be more Stellar Blade in the future. They seem pretty sold on this IP, and with good reason. It's done pretty well on PlayStation 5, so now we'll see how it does on PC here in about a month. Also, with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 set for this summer, people of course are wondering, what's next for the franchise? Could we have an underground remake, or maybe a combination of the two games? Well, Tony Hawk was asked about this at an event, this by Screen Rant, we can see, where they say Screen Rant spoke to Hawk at THPS Fest and asked him if there are aspirations to keep the series going with a Thug remaster, Tony Hawk Underground, saying, "I always have aspirations. It's not up to me generally. I'll campaign all I can, but I'm working with a much bigger company that's a lot smarter than me." Hawk then clarified that a Tony Hawk's Underground Remastered hasn't really been discussed, noting that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 hasn't yet been released, the success of which may impact the franchise's future. Now, I will say Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 did very, very well. It was noted it was like the most successful in terms of the entire franchise to date. So they're probably looking at 3 and 4 and say, okay, let's see if the momentum continues. I'd like to think there's a future where we do get an Underground remake, even if it's 1 and 2 just combined into a single title. I think that's the logical step from here, because like the remake so far with 1 and 2 worked, 3 and 4 works. Let's see what happens to the Underground, and I think there are many people out there who would like to see that. So here's hoping Microsoft and Activision do have future plans and maybe just haven't talked to Tony Hawk. Although it does seem like he is ready to push for Underground, so here's hoping. Oh, and I wanted to point this bundle out because it's a lot of fun to get a bunch of games for, in this case, $10. This we can see over on Humble Bundle. This is the Xbox Game Studios Publisher Bundle, and for $10 you can get Wasteland 3, Quantum Break, As Dusk Falls, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Age of Empires Definitive Edition, Broken Age, Sunset Overdrive, and Battletoads. Now, these are all redeemable, they say, through Steam. So if you even have a Steam Deck, this would work really well there, or just in general on PC, of course. Again, I like to point these out because for, what is that, 8 titles at $10, that's pretty good. And like Quantum Break, Ori, Age of Empires, Sunset Overdrive, to me, are some of the ones that are definitely standouts here. Although you could also say As Dusk Falls and Wasteland 3, depending on your preferences. But bottom line is, pretty good bundle there at $10, so just want to make everyone aware of it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2, specifically some information that's come out from the hands-on events that have continued along. People have been posting, of course, impressions around some of the games, like Mario Kart world being a big one since we are now less than a month away from its release, and that'll be very interesting when we get there and see what this game is all about exactly. Even though we've seen a lot about it, I still feel like there's plenty to discover kind of in the open world sort of setup there. But still, there are a lot of questions around things like the accessories such as the Pro Controller. And when I had asked people, what would you like to see more about around the Switch 2's launch? Of course, people are curious about the device itself. There were many people curious about that new Pro Controller. And I mean, it looks very similar to the current Pro Controller, but they have the back buttons, and there are some things people have wondered about, and if Nintendo's maybe been able to make improvements or just outright fix it. And part of that is the D-pad, which we can see this is posted up. Now, this was pulled from Reddit and then posted on Twitter X and then picked up by My Nintendo News. It's been making the rounds a bit here, but the idea was on Reddit, a user did go to a hands-on event, and they mentioned the fact that this Pro Controller that they used seemed to have figured out the issue with that D-pad, which would give false inputs or phantom presses as maybe you'd rock the D-pad around, saying, I played some Tears of the Kingdom with the Pro Controller. I got in the menu and started rocking the D-pad to test any misinputs, and absolutely nothing. They fixed the D-pad. Now, this person seems to be pretty in tune, I guess, with their Switch D-pad and something that they've been going through, maybe with multiple iterations of it or just multiple purchases there for the Pro Controller. And it was really, really big when the Pro Controller had come out. People realized this, and it seemed like something Nintendo was trying to work on as they went through the generation. Very similar to those Joy-Con controllers with drift. It was very obvious they were doing stuff with the joystick, but they're kind of locked into a certain design that they have in manufacturing, whether it's the shell itself or the little D-pad, the design with the little spike in the middle. They can only really do so much until you get to this point. As they've said many, many times, a lot of the stuff we see for the Switch 2, while it is iterative on the Switch 1, there's many, many parts of it that have been rebuilt from scratch, essentially, from the ground up. And I would wager a bet that the new Pro Controller falls under that same category, which does make me wonder what they've done here with the D-pad. So I've now decided, yes, I have to get the Pro Controller so that we can look into it. Like, we'll take it apart, see what's going on with that D-pad, and also compare it to the Switch 1 Pro Controller D-pad and see if they really have at least been able to improve it. I don't know. I don't know if you're able to fix it completely, because all D-pads, for the most part, can go through some weird phantom presses just in general. But for some reason, the D-pad on that Pro Controller initially that we had with the Switch 1 just had more than usual. So we'll see when it comes out, but at least that's good news coming from the hands-on event. It's one account of it, so again, we'll get to release day and do a breakdown, tear down everything of that Pro Controller Nintendo will be selling alongside the Switch 2, see if they'll be able to figure some stuff out. Next up, let's talk about Rockstar and Take-Two, of course, delaying GTA 6 out of 2025, although every time I ran a poll, it seemed like the majority of people weren't even expecting it this year anyway, but we'll look towards May of 2026 for what will be, I think most of us figure, the biggest release we've ever seen in gaming history. Until then, though, it appears that Rockstar has something else up their sleeve for 2025 holiday. This we can see is posted up. Now, this is over on the GTA forums from Tez2. It's been very reliable when it comes to the inner workings of Rockstar and some of their projects they have lined up, saying someone at Rockstar hinted at the GTA 4 port, and by now it should have gone up a year in development. We may end up seeing it drop later this year, and it's one more reason, in addition to existing reasons, the LCPP mod was taken down. If they still follow their plan laid out from the pandemic days, they'll do a Max Payne 3 port after 4, so that is an opportunity to do a bundle of a definitive edition, Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes, which we know Remedy is currently working on, and seems to have gone on to like full production and stuff for it, so that would line up for that to come out in the next couple years, we'll say, and then a Max Payne 3 port. Now, Max Payne 3 is playable currently on the Xbox Series, but that's just through backwards compatibility, and it is capped at 30 FPS. So that would be an awesome game. I think a bit more than a port. I'd like to see them do at least a somewhat of a remaster on it, because that game is awesome, but it doesn't feel awesome to play on the Xbox Series. And then, of course, you want to get it over to the PS5 or, I don't know, PS6 at that point. So there are a lot of new potential gamers who'd be able to discover Max Payne that way. Then also like the Switch 2 and so on. But the focus here is something that's a bit closer, that being GTA 4 with a release. Now, it seems like as information's come out, it'd be targeting current platforms, and Seems like that would be the Switch 1 alongside of the PS5 and the Xbox Series. And it's not really a big deal because apparently this is a port more than a remaster or any kind of remake, nothing like that. So I'm kind of thinking about this being similar to Red Dead Redemption. When that came out, people looked at it as not really a big remaster, more of just let's get this game onto these platforms that's not currently on so that we can reach a wider audience and probably flip something that had a lower development cost for a bunch of money. But with the Xbox, it was already there, so they kind of played it off as you can just pick it up that way. Like, it's cool. The PS4 and the Switch version, those are ones you'll have to just buy outright at this time on release day. GTA 4, though, it's funny. I was thinking about playing it, or at least revisiting it recently, so I looked into it on the Xbox Series. I thought it'd be interesting to see how the 360 version, because that's what you'd play on the Xbox Series, that's the version I played forever ago, which, yes, I checked. It's 17 years ago, which I had to think about that. I was like, wow, it really has been 17 years since I played GTA 4 when it first, because I got it like the first week it came out. Big deal, right? When it happened. And then I played it after that as well. So I feel like it's been more than a decade, but not quite 17 years since the last time I played it. I was just curious, okay, how does the Xbox 360 version hold up and work on the Xbox Series? And from what I remember, the frame rate would be all over the place, but it is uncapped. And on the Xbox Series, it hits 60 frames. Apparently, though, there are bugs and glitches and other things in there that can interrupt your experience, we'll say, during your playthrough. So maybe those are things that they iron out here and they still do a full re-release on the Xbox Series alongside of PS5 and Switch, of course, backwards compatible then for the Switch too. So hopefully they have the idea of an uncapped frame rate in mind, because backwards compatible then on the Switch too would, I assume, just give us a 60 FPS experience. I mean, it's gonna be 60, maybe 120 even. It depends on how that engine, I guess, holds up. But really, really cool, because I think GTA 4 is still a very interesting Grand Theft Auto. It's still a ridiculous title. I mean, not as ridiculous, I'll say, as 5, but the New York City atmosphere, of course, as they were taking inspiration for there with that world, fits in very, very well with the Grand Theft Auto universe. So I would like to go back to it, but now I'm gonna hold out and wait, because apparently this is something that some are expecting to release later on this year, like holiday, maybe even fall. So we'll keep an eye out for that whenever Rockstar or Take-Two are ready to announce it. And based on how their Grand Theft Auto trilogy, the collection they did, released and how well it sold, I would expect this to do very, very well also. Next up, we'll talk about the Dreamcast, as there is a new accessory that's been announced for it, and this looks awesome. So let's take a look. This is over on Twitter X. This is from 8-Bit Mods, saying, introducing the VMU Pro. Now, you've seen some of these Pro memory cards before. I've done videos on them, like for the PS2. Really, really cool devices for being able to just jam a ton of save data, a ton of memory cards, really, into one. And in some cases, they've expanded functionality on the PS2 where you can load games directly off of the memory cards. And some of that functionality, added functionality, continues here. So the last VMU you'll ever need for your Dreamcast, but it's not just for your Dreamcast. The VMU Pro can emulate your favorite 8-bit era handhelds and game consoles like the Game Boy Color, NES, and Master System on a beautiful 16-bit color IPS TFT display. Wi-Fi enabled, backwards compatible with original VMs, and the best on-device file management you've seen on a memory card. I like them really testing the waters here with Mario in their trailer. Might want to careful about that. Pre-orders, though, they do open this week, May 15th, 2025 at 8-Bit Mods. So you want to check out their website. I'll have this announcement linked down below that, of course, then goes to their website on their handle here on Twitter X. But this is really, really cool. I like the idea of them also kind of making a portable emulator device that don't know how great it'll be playing on that little screen with the little D-pad and the 2 buttons. But it's just fun to have, I guess. And the thing that's so impressive about this, think about the VMU versus any other memory cards. Yes, you still need a screen, which they do on those as well, but it has to be a good screen because it has to be able to simulate all the stuff the Dreamcast VMU could do, which is really far ahead of its time. You also need the specific connector at the top. You need, I assume, like unique membranes underneath of those unique D-pad and face buttons there. And then you also need it to be able to sit in to the Dreamcast controller specifically, so the shell has to be just about perfect. There's a lot, I assume, that went into this, but I'm going to try to get one. And I think it'll be a lot of fun checking it out here in a video, tearing it down, and just kind of going over some of the functionality, because they have come through with some very, very interesting ideas, I'll say, with some of their other memory cards just through just random updates for firmware. So I do wonder how far they're going to push things here with what looks like the most capable memory card to date from them. So really fun stuff. Going to be keeping an eye on pre-orders, of course, those going live on the 15th. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an update for Switch 2 pre-orders and stock, as I'm sure many people out there are still trying to find a way to get this system, whether it's the bundle for Mario Kart World, just the system in general, as opposed to going out and paying scalper prices, which people are still doing that online. Still, though, I am noticing a trend here, as we've discussed. Target, for example, may just have stock available day one. It looks like Best Buy may also have stock, and they may have announced it a little too early. We could see this posted up, though. This is from Wario64. It says, in addition to fulfilling pre-orders, most stores, that being for Best Buy, will have limited inventory of systems, games, and accessories for purchase. Customers will also have the chance for a free Nintendo collectible. Well, this is where I'm going for midnight to pick up the Switch 2, so maybe I'll get or at least have a chance to get a free Nintendo collectible, whatever that is. Anyway, not long after this, Wario64 then followed up saying Best Buy has reverted the Switch 2 info. Currently doesn't mention the limited inventory of purchase at launch or the free Nintendo collectible item, which makes me think that website edit went live a little early. This is something I assume they want to announce maybe even days before. This is going to be... It's going to be an interesting day when the Switch 2 comes out with stock and how many people are able to get it and how limited it really will be. It does feel like Nintendo rushed a lot of stock to market here for its launch. So I'm going to the Best Buy midnight event. I'm curious if they really will have just extra stock available. And I guess we'll report on that the day after all of that goes down. But we'll see what happens there. But I just wanted to bring this up just in case you were still looking around, trying to figure out who could have stock day one or even at midnight. While it's not guaranteed because at this time they've reverted their website, definitely want to keep an eye on Best Buy as well as Target, as we now have two stories or at least different reports about how they may have stock at launch or even in this case at midnight. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played Grand Theft Auto 4? Okay, 62% say yes, 38% say no. So as I mentioned, there's still many people out there who have not played this game because it came out a long time ago now. And sure, people could have gone back and discovered it maybe on PC or something, or they do have their Xbox Series on and, oh, okay, there's GTA 4 and it's pretty cheap. Typically it'd be on sale. I've seen it for $5 or $6 or something. And if you have the disc, you could pop it in and it would still be able to grab the game from the servers and work through backwards compatibility. I assume they would also include all the DLC with this port or this light remaster. It would make sense just to kind of package it all together because we did have a complete edition for GTA 4 after the initial one had come out, well, like a couple years later or something. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here when it comes to this version of GTA 4 releasing. And yeah, probably a whole new audience that's never played it before getting a chance to check it out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Lenmar, who says, the mouse feature doesn't look very reactive and precise in that clip. Seems to be having lots of response delay. So to my understanding, there is a sensitivity setting for the mouse itself, and they could have just been like a low sensitivity and it looks kind of choppy and kind of behind as they're moving around. So in that case, yeah, you'd want to go ahead and increase the sensitivity so it's much more responsive as you move. I also saw people mention the mouse cursor looks kind of boring. And that's just kind of where we are now with this. Although, you know, it would be kind of fun if you could unlock, or if they just released, it sounds funny, but like themed like mouse cursors. You could do the one from the Wii. That'd be kind of fun, I guess. Or just different characters that maybe have animations when you click. Although we've kind of discussed how that Nintendo, that Nintendo feeling when it comes to the OS is sort of behind us now. Some of the creativity around just the UI even, and we're left with what kind of looks like a very plain or sterile environment for the OS. That would put a nice little wrinkle, I think. Something a little fun. If you had maybe even Mario and you clicked, you kind of did a little jumping anime. I don't know, something like that. It's possible, but as what we saw with the themes and back in 2017 when we got the Switch and said, okay, there's black and white theme, I'm sure in no time they're gonna have all kinds of other themes dropped in there, and then they never did. I'm kind of leaning that way for the mouse as well. We'll have just the standard basic looking mouse for the next 8 years before we renew hope again with the Switch 3. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe to hear more about how Nintendo responded to things like Switch 2 pricing and stock to investors. They had an entire meeting for that, and I went over all the different questions. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.